Hello, everyone, and welcome in today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoy this video. I wanted to do at least a few more videos on some time periods that many of you have inquired about in the history of jewelry. For the new subscribers, my name is Jason Adams. I'm a silversmith, an artist, a photographer, a builder, a problem solver, and a jewelry historian. I also worked at several auction houses throughout the United States, and I've been doing this for almost 3 decades, so you can trust me. To all the returning subscribers, all of my friends that I've met over the last year, thank you again for joining, and I hope you find this video full of information. I'm going to try and do some values as well as we go, and also talk about some of the basic design aesthetics of brutalism. The brutalist movement started with architecture, basically. Started with buildings and the design of buildings. And of course, like most time periods, then slowly transitioned into the design of jewelry as artists and craftspeople took hold of that design aesthetic and started to apply it into jewelry and into jewelry materials. I don't think there's very many people that would have a discrepancy or disagreement with the fact that the brutalist movement started in the heart of the 1950s and continued until the late 1970s. By the 1980s, it was pretty much gone. There were still artists that held on to that design aesthetic that to this day continue to create in the brutalist mindset, and I'll show you some of that from a contemporary metalsmith that is my friend Christina Malcolm. These are sterling silver and mixed gemstones, and these are 2 cuff bracelets that I bought at the Emilio Brothers Gem Show. These are all natural stones. You have seen me wear these in videos before. They are artisan signed on the inside. These are very heavy cast sterling silver, and why I show this is a classic example of brutalist jewelry. There is a fine line between brutalism and modernist, and there is an overlap there. So like many jewelry historians will cover, we do understand that there's always a transitional time period. Sometimes these items may look modernist, but most certainly at their core, they're brutalist. I rather show you the pieces than tell you why. However, I'll cover some of the design aesthetics that help you identify and evaluate brutalist jewelry. On a pair of bracelets like this, because of how heavy they are and how solid they are, individually these would be around $600 to around $700. I would say the pair does elevate slightly to more like $1,200 or $1,500. Okay, so there's those, and very heavy, very, cast solid, and look how rough and rugged that silver is. That's one of the aesthetics of brutalism that we'll cover today. These 2 bracelets are both vintage. This one is slightly older than this one, and these are both brutalist. There's no denying that. See that kind of rough and raw edge, that very modeled texture in this cast sterling silver bracelet? Very beautiful, very bold, extremely well constructed, fully signed on the bottom here. I don't remember the artist on this one. Give me one moment. Let me take a peek and see. All right, this one's just marked Israel, and there is a small artist mark here. I will say that a lot of Israeli-made jewelry is very brutalist in its form and in its design. So don't be surprised when you see a lot of Israeli jewelry that looks brutalist. I was going to mention an Israeli artist known as Rachel Guerra, and Rachel's work is more modernist than it is brutalist, but sometimes you will see brutalism in her work. Sometimes you will. This is also very brutalist. Look how that's kind of melty looking, very sculptural, very raw edged, very kind of rough, almost like a natural nugget surface. That is what's brutalism and the design was known for. This bracelet was $230. I got it for $100, and I would say on this one retail would be around $400 to $500. Very easy. On this one, around $165 to $175. And notice that this is electroformed. See how the metal is electroformed onto that amber? So that is definitely one of the techniques that brutalism did use to its advantage, was using wax and then electroforming to that wax. When you look up certain artists, there's like Jean-Jacques Morvan. Andrew Grima is another one. I have a lot of Andrew Grima's work in my collection, but I didn't bring it on today because it is in safety deposit. Pal Capeñas, for Mexicans. So look up some of these artists, and I will try and type that information into the description box underneath the video so that you can research some of the preeminent artists who were using the brutalism mindset and design skills. This one is a recent gift from Adrian. Adrian, thank you so much. I received this in the mail the other day, and I couldn't believe your generosity. I just couldn't believe it. So when we look at these two, this is an early brutalist ring. I bought this when I think this was like 1992 or 1993. I bought it at the Burton Antique Show. This is classic brutalist design. When you see things that look like that in that natural kind of coral or that natural kind of nugget formation, see how textured that is? See how dynamic that design is? This is 100% brutalism at its core and at its best. There's no denying that this is brutalist. This sums it up. So this ring with this large smoky quartz stone is absolutely brutalism and brutalist at its best. It is unsigned. It is not marked in any way. Back in the day, I bought this for $20. Now such a ring in this size and scale, this is easily $500 to $600. Easily. So please reach out and buy brutalist jewelry because it is extremely well made. Most of it is extremely well made. And a good and sound investment. I do think it will increase in value because there's only so much of it to go around. Let's face it. It started in sculpture in sculpture and architecture in the 1950s. Didn't really take hold until the late 1950s. I would say jewelry in brutalist only lasted from late 1950s in its more purest form, 1960 through 1970, maybe 1975. By 1978, it started to transition into that more Memphis school of the 1980s. But there were still some holdouts as well. I always say, please be gracious as a historian and understand that time periods just don't start in one day on the calendar and end in another day on a calendar. It doesn't work that way. There is no like time clock, a punch in and a punch out of a time period. We all know that. Some people don't realize it and like to fight over the dates. This is from Adrian, and this is more contemporary. So this is newer, maybe, I would say based on the Hallmark system, late 1980s, maybe into the 1990s. But notice how that's brutalist. A raw edge, kind of that bark-like finish, and then this raised bezel set, rough cut amber that isn't really cut at all, but just a rough amber nugget. Look at the size of this ring. Brutalist was not afraid. It was not bashful. It was courageous. Adrian, thank you so much for this gift. I can't believe it. And it does fit my ring finger. So thank you. Thank you for that generous gift. But you can see the inspiration of a genuine period brutalist piece into a more contemporary version. Do I sound excited? Because I am. So thank you so much for joining in, and I hope this video continues to help you. I decided to bring on two brooches that are brutalist. This is a gift from Carla. Carla's Beautiful Things. Carla sent me this, and I can't believe how generous. This is a brutalist original. I would say circa dating on this one, late 1960s into the 1970s, cast in solid sterling silver. Looks like branch coral, looks like a sea anemone, but look at that raw and rough kind of, this bold shape and these strong lines and this jagged edge, almost raw and unfinished. And then you get into something more like this that is later brutalist. This is more towards the late 70s into the 1980s on this one. So there's a nod to brutalism even in later brutalist works. Love this bold geometric and that frame. In a genuine brutalist piece, the edge would be more raw. The edge would be more rugged and jagged. So this is a later version, but still looking at that nod to authentic brutalist. Thank you, Carla, for this. I will wear this. It's both a pin and a pendant, but I'll be wearing this as a brooch. I'll be wearing this as a pin, and it's going to be my new good luck pin. So thank you so much. So that shows you two brooches. Value on this one, probably around 65, maybe 75, unsigned. And then on this one, slightly more, 165 to 185, based on design and construction in sterling silver. I've yet to find a maker's mark on this one. I need to look a little bit closer, but I wear this constantly. I love the size and the scale and the boldness of this with that reticulated silver. Such a beautiful technique to put finish and pizzazz on a brooch. This little box, this was a gift years ago from an antique dealer, and this definitely is transitional between brutalist and also modernist. A sterling silver box, completely artisan constructed, likely Cleveland skull, more than likely based on where this came out of, cultured pearls that are set down in. But see that natural, kind of raw and rough design, very brutalist in the center, but then more streamlined and modernist. So there are transitional pieces. Just remember that. Be kind with brutalism when it comes to the design aesthetic. Why I say that is there are still contemporary silversmiths that are creating in the brutalist mindset. Christina Malcolm is one of them. She is a fellow silversmith and a metalsmith that I went to school with. All of these are created in the brutalist mindset and then inset with gemstones. If a jewelry historian looked at this, they might think that this was produced in the 1970s, and they might think the same thing on this one, and they might say the same thing on this one. See how that is cast in place with that raw, unfinished edge, and then that kind of granular or nugget finish. Very sculptural as a jewelry piece, very sculptural, wearable sculpture. Also that textured and raw, rough finish. A telltale sign of brutalism as a design aesthetic. You get into this one, which is cuttlebone cast, leaving that bark-like finish again, that kind of granular finish, these kind of little beaded surface, that rough texture, almost in a way, not necessarily highly modeled, but you understand, and a Florentine finish. See how all of these are kind of matte finish? They all have such texture on them that they appear to be more of a matte finish. These were made within the last 10 years. Christina is still producing and doing remarkable work. These are so beautiful for wearable sculpture. You can see that is so purist in its form, very directional, very much so about the gemstone and then that mounting that kind of embraces the stone. Very much so brutalist in its mindset, and a nod back to, again, those strong lines, the jagged edges, that quote, unfinished or raw design. Sometimes they look unfinished in a way. They just look unfinished. And this one was cast in cuttlebone, and this was the sprue system. So in fact, it is unfinished. They didn't take the sprue off of this. And that's what I'm saying is like that is just the sprue system that was part of the design. Almost looks unfinished, yet it's so beautifully finished. Again, Florentine or matte surface. I hope this shows you at least the inspiration of what brutalism did for us. And to think that it started, its life in architecture. Those buildings were kind of like, when you drive down, there's a building in Columbus when you drive down to the fairgrounds, and there's a building on the right-hand side, and it's this massive building, almost foreboding in its presentation. It's like a big block set on these like big thick buttresses, absolutely brutalist in its coldness or distance-ness or its forebodingness in architecture. Those buildings stick out much like brutalist jewelry does as well. This is a Christina Malcolm original as well, but notice the surface. A very much so nod to that brutalist form of a raw edge. See how this seems almost unfinished, but look, it's completely finished. Very bold, very dynamic. She probably doesn't realize that her work is so inspired by the brutalist movement, because when I went to school with her, we weren't really in school, we weren't really taught to look at what had been done before. So Christie's work, absolutely brutal in its form. I guess I keep forgetting values. But that's okay on Christie's work, because we don't need to talk value on hers. So I bring on a modernist version, a Bjorn Weckstrom original, and also a brutalist version here. So you can see the difference between brutalism and modernism. You can see that there is a relationship there. Highly sculptural, matte finish. That's about as close as we get. Almost a raw edge. Almost a raw edge. Very much so a raw edge. A large citrine, large smoky quartz in the center of this one. I have always thought this is magnificent. Completely unsigned. A double chain system up here. Look at that. Look at the way this is constructed in that almost nod to a Native American shadow box to recess that stone and oxidize on the inside, so all of that kind of vanishes and that stone appears to float like magic inside this extremely large, oversized sterling silver pendant. Notice that texture applied to the surface. Classic brutalism at its best when it comes to jewelry. Look at even the bead is decorated with that textured wire on this very thin chain that drops down. Such a conversation piece as well. When I wear this, it surely gets noticed and everybody wants to touch it. It's very tactile. It's very finished though, but still rough, still raw. That is, again, a classic brutalist piece. I would say on this one, late 60s into the 70s on this one, but more 60s. Value on this one, unsigned, around $400 to $500 because of the size and the quality. Bjorn Weckstrom's work, he designed the melted collar of silver that Princess Leia wore in the Star Wars movie. That's one of his most notable pieces. And if you look at the Star Wars movie and Princess Leia's kind of modular or panel necklace that goes around her neck, it's created out of these this form of silver by itself. And then Bjorn Weckstrom gave birth to this planet or this universe of cast acrylic that has then been carved from behind and then inset with pigment from behind and then sealed off. But Bjorn Weckstrom's work, absolutely exquisite, always fully hallmarked. So be careful to look for these marks. That elevates the value. If you find this at the thrift store, they may not be able to identify this. Still to this day, they may not be able to. They might put this out for, let's say you walk in and it's still $100. You can complain all day long about the elevated prices at the thrift store, but if it was $100, you could make $1,500. This is worth between $1,600 and $1,800. And the chain is absolutely stunning as well, fully hallmarked at the back of the chain. But look at the construction and commit that to memory. The way that these things are constructed and the way the chain is attached to that almost melted form. But that's more modernist. Still looking at brutalism. Still looking at that kind of unfinished surface, Florentine as well. So they did borrow design aesthetics from past time periods. But after all, isn't that what artists do? So isn't that what, we're supposed to do? So a quick quiz. So you can see these two side by side. Which one's modernist and which one's brutalist? I think after the last 18 minutes, I think this side is modernist sterling silver and a magnificent cuff that's worth an absolute fortune. We'll get into this in later videos. And then this one as brutalist. This was a gift from Tanya. And thank you, Tanya, because I still wear it to this day. Again, raw edge. Hammered-ish, planished surface to give that kind of bark-like texture. Almost like a nugget-like texture. I still lose my words because it's rough, but it's also finished. They made it appear to look unfinished, but very well thought out. Cast sterling silver in a very large size. Value on this one, I don't want to talk about right now. Value on this one, around $150 to $165. Very heavy sterling silver. Extremely heavy sterling silver, and such a beautiful presentation in classic brutalism in jewelry. Now, you might be asking yourself, can you show us any gold brutalist jewelry? I most certainly can. So there's this one, and we'll start there, and I'll bring the other two in just a moment. I brought this ring on in a past video. These are blue zircon, and this is cast 14 karat gold. Again, a classic example of brutalist jewelry in solid 14 karat gold. A very expensive ring. If you found this on the secondary market, these start at $2,000 and go up from there, depending on stone and gold weight. But that's cast 14 karat gold. Notice that branch-like form, the rough finish on the metal. That's absolutely brutalism in 14 karat gold. Late 1960s on this one. I did not find my rough emerald. You know, I'm going to pause the video and go see if I can find it. I'll be right back. Do I sound out of breath? Because I am. I just went running like a marathon through the house, like you were actually waiting for me. So why couldn't find this one? This is going to be in an exhibition very soon. And then it will be sold. So I had to I had to go find this. Why I wanted to show this one is because I may not have it for long. Such things are very desired right now, and this is brutalism as well. Look at how this is constructed, like a natural, almost lava flow over that emerald crystal. I think I may have shown this in a past video. I may not have. I have two that are very similar, so I don't think I showed this one. I think I showed the other one in the other video, but see how that's all naturalistic. I think this one is 18 karat gold. I think it is. From my memory, I think it's 18 karat, but look at that raw emerald crystal. Likely created, could be Chatham. I never really looked at it, but I will have to look at it for the exhibition and get that labeled. But look at those beautiful diamonds. But that's brutalism. That's brutalist jewelry. And I don't remember if this one was signed. I thought this could have been Grima, Andrew Grima, but I'm not exactly sure. I have to look. Value on this one, I don't know if I'm supposed to say right now because of the show, but I will say if you found one similar to this, starts at $1,500 and goes to about $2,500. So there's a lot of money in brutalist jewelry. Let's get that back in its identification bag and set that one here so I don't lose track of it. So we'll restudy that one in blue zircon and 14 karat gold. Notice that cast construction. I would say on this one, because of the zircons again, several thousand, just because the size of the zircon, and the ring is gigantic. If you found a smaller version, you could still get them for around 1,000 or just under. But when it gets into this large of a complex situation, that was very expensive back then to create. And then this one I found next to this other one, and I'm eventually going to have to sell this. This has been with me for probably... I would say this ring's been with me for probably 15 or 18 years. Amber, sterling silver, and enamel. It's a very small size, but look at the dynamic nature of that stone. That amber stone and how deep that is. Very much so a nod to brutalism. A little bit more naturalistic with these lily pads with blue and purple enamel. So slightly more contemporary, pulling away from brutalism, but still that kind of raw and rough kind of design. I really love these. I really do. All right. Then we'll talk about two brooches because I'm sure you're asking, can you show us more gold in brutalist jewelry? And the gold portion of brutalist jewelry is very difficult to find. Let me show you this one first. Well, I'll bring them both in. That's okay. So both of these are solid gold, and both of them are considered brutalist in jewelry. See that raw, unfinished edge again? Almost a beaded surface like arc welding. And when you think about brutalism and the materials, because I hadn't really talked about that. When you were talking about architecture with the start of the movement. That's like concrete, steel, iron, very rough materials already, very rough. You will see some brutalist jewelry using, concrete and sometimes iron or forged steel even. You will see that. It's remarkable when you do. I do have a brooch that is forged steel and it has a diamond on it. It's incredible. I don't wear it anymore because of the value. But this one's 18 karat gold. I am doing some additional research on this because I'm fairly certain I know the designer. I won't say yet. When I'm unsure, I don't make a comment, but see how this seems unfinished, that edge, but then look what they did. They finished that edge underneath. Look at the design aesthetic to go from, we want this to appear raw and natural, that edge, and then, but we're going to be a fine jeweler about it, and we're going to line that with a gallery of 18 karat gold wire. Are you kidding me? Now that's design, and that's craftsmanship. This is a sculptor that's also a jeweler. Think about that. Think about being both. Incredible craft on these things. The diamonds in this one, the size of this, unattributed in 18 karat gold, I would say that this brooch would be in the vicinity of 3,000 to 4,000 unattributed, with the attribution that I'm working on that could easily escalate the value to 7,000 to 9,000. And I'm being conservative. On those numbers, but look at that undulation of bent metal. Again, raw and unfinished, yet so finished. And is that an abstract flower? It absolutely is to me. Is that a rose corsage that will never die? It absolutely is. Is it industrial and rugged? Yes. Is it refined and beautiful at the same time? Absolutely yes. Early on in my collecting, I didn't quite understand the brutalist movement. I just kind of didn't understand it until I bought that initial ring, until I bought this at the Burton show. Until I bought this, I didn't quite understand the brutalist movement. And then, because I always thought, oh, that looks dated. That looks like dated, and it looked like, I don't know, just it didn't resonate with me because I was collecting at the time Art Nouveau jewelry. So go from Art Nouveau, really refined, stylized, pretty, feminine, the beautiful women, and then look at this, and you're like, I'm not really for that. But now I'm 100% for this, and really putting a lot of money into it. I absolutely have faith in it. Let's zoom in on these. Why are we so far away today? And why am I still screaming? Because I'm excited. This one's solid 18 karat gold, and there's almost 5 carats. VVS, almost D-flawless. Really, incredibly clean and incredibly white diamonds. And think about that, to make something so, quote, unfinished, so raw and rugged, and put that next to these diamonds. Doesn't it look like glaciers that collided, that there was energy of glaciers colliding? Or like, what is that? Tectonic plates that when there's an earthquake and they overlap each other. Or an atomic burst in a way that was frozen in time with that raw and rough edge. Are you kidding me? When it comes to design, I lose it when I look at brutalist jewelry. This is solid 18 karat gold. There are a couple hallmarks down in here that I haven't been able to read just yet. And the bar pin here is platinum. That is not steel. That is actually a platinum pin stem that runs the length of this. And look at the way the diamonds are set. So you have this raw and rough and rugged starburst. And then you've got these incredibly beautiful set diamonds. Those are likely platinum heads for the diamonds. Those are likely done in platinum to make them strong and robust. But I look at these two, and although extremely expensive, worth every penny. And that's, both are brutalist. Both are considered brutalist pieces, and those are your gold versions. So extremely expensive, and only going up because the intrinsic value of not only the gold but also the diamonds. This one's 38 grams. 38 grams of solid 18 karat gold. There was no expense spared on this one. Without a designer on this. I'll do further research on the designer without any attribution or without knowing what the designer is. I would say on this one, you're in the vicinity of around 4,800 to 5,800 with the value could go through the roof. It could be a $20,000 pin fairly easily. So there's a lot of money in Brutalist jewelry as well. So be on the lookout. I think that's it for today. I think I covered everything I wanted to. I hope this helped identify the Brutalist movement. I hope it clarified at least some of the design aesthetics. I would always rather show you than tell you. So hopefully this visual library I'm creating is actually resonating with all of you and helping you all out when you're at the thrift store or antique shops or storage unit auctions. I gotta run for the day. I love you because I do.